Hello! How are we all doing? I'm waiting for some indication that I'm actually live. So fingers crossed. We've got to get on with it today. There is so much to cover. So hopefully I'm live. I will say hello to the ones I can see in the chat. Oh, excellent. I can see Jamie and Renee. What's that one there? Long name. Shepherd Sternhalf. Oh, I like that. Hello, Mark. Hello, SFN. Who else have we got? Annie, hello. So we're all present and correct. Excellent. Let's get on with it because, as I say, master pages, there is a lot to cover. So first things first, we are broadcasting in HD. Make sure you are watching in HD. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner from which you can choose your quality, and you need to choose the best quality that's there. While you're down there, there's the like button, and we do like the like button. Just saying. Right, if you don't know me, my name is Elaine Giles. I'm a long-time Affinity user since the original Affinity Designer was released in beta, and I've used the Affinity apps every day since then. Everything that we look at today is as relevant for the Mac as it is Windows. Still no sign of the iPad app, but I'm sure it's on its way. Now, would everything that we're doing be relevant for the iPad? Possibly. It would definitely be supported on the iPad when it finally arrives. News this week. Big news for the channel. A milestone. 49,000 subscribers. So thank you, each and every one of you who have subscribed. Don't forget to tell your friends. We need to get to that 50,000, don't we? It's a nice round number. Right, as I say, today is jam-packed. So much so, couldn't even fit it all on the agenda slide. I did discuss it with Mike and I said, well, I could take it over 2 or 3 slides, but probably best not to. So I've truncated it into this, but in terms of actual detail, there's going to be plenty of it, which means you may have questions. If you've got questions, put your questions in the chat as we go. We will collect them ready for the Q&A at the end of the session. And if you can remember, please put a Q at the beginning. It just makes it a little easier for Mike to find those questions, and also give us as much context as possible because we have a delay on YouTube and that makes it quite difficult to work out what you're referring to if there isn't enough context. So just give us enough information. And of course, you'll be busy in the chat, won't you? We love to read the chat, but please keep it friendly in there. We don't want any scraps and having to deal with it, do we, Mike? Mike says no. You'll hear Mike later, but at the moment his mic's turned off. Okay, so mastering master pages in Affinity by Canva. First of all, what are master pages? Because if you don't know this, the rest is not going to make any sense, is it? Well, we have 2 distinct types of pages, broadly speaking, without getting into more detail than we need to. We have content pages, where your content lives, and we have master pages. Now, a master page is a non-printing page in terms of it isn't included in the number of pages that are output, but its content is shown on any content page that it is applied to. So you can use your master page as a template page for 1 or more pages in your document. Your content pages are output. Your master pages are not counted as those separate pages. So if in a file with 10 content pages and 4 master pages, when you produce your content, it will output the 10 content pages and not count the 4 master pages. But as I say, the content of those master pages will be included on any pages to which they are applied. And a content page, that's where your content lives. So if you're putting together a cookery book, it's where the recipes are, it's where the table of contents is, it's where the ingredient index is. Now, first encounter with this used to be the File New dialog box, and in Affinity Publisher, it was very much in your face. It's a little bit more hidden now, but it is still there. So the first encounter with master pages could well be the new file dialog box, which we'll have a look at right now, which I did have on the screen, but, for reasons best known to itself, it's hidden it. Oh, okay, you really have hidden it, haven't you? Where have you gone? Right. So this is the new file dialog. It doesn't matter what you select in here in terms of size, the settings on the right-hand side tend to be the same. Now, when I opened this dialog, you'll notice I was in the layout view. It doesn't actually make a difference. So what we're concentrating on for our first encounter with master pages is the right-hand side of this dialog box. Now, if you're moving from publisher, it used to be easier because things were just there. Now they're a little bit hidden. What we see, I'm scrolling with my mouse wheel, nothing's happening because that is all we can see. So in here, you would choose your size and your DPI and all the rest of it. But if you want to add a master page at this stage, you need to turn on multi-page for the option to even be available now. So if I slide that across, you can see we now have default options of facing pages, arrange horizontally, start on the right, number of pages, and then we have the option to create a default master. And what it's referring to is a default master page. Be aware though, even if you choose to do that by sliding that, it creates only one master page and it's blank. It's totally blank. That is all you can do from here. But let me show you the difference. First of all, if I just create a document, we can see that in the Pages panel, we have master pages at the top and there are none. So that would be the default behavior. But if we go back in and we enable the multi-page, even if we leave it set to one page, we can choose to have a default master page. When you do that and you create, you end up with this master up here. Just to point out that because, this is actually very interesting the way it works, because you have to choose multi-pages and because I chose facing pages, which was the default, the master is split into two, ready for a spread. So that is how you would first encounter this in that dialog box. So let's get rid of that. And before we go any further, we have a potential gotcha. So I've had questions about this, and when I explain, people don't like it. It wasn't my choice. This is just how it works. And it is a potential gotcha if you've not really made your mind up. You know, you're at that stage, you're just feeling creative. So you create a file and you start working with it, and before you know it, you're really pleased with it, and that's going to be a file that you then output for something. Now, your issues with that are, have you started the document correctly? And this is what this potential gotcha is. So let's go back and have another look. Right, so I'm in here. Let's say that I don't need at this stage multi-page because all I'm doing is throwing some ideas down. That's what I'll do. So I go into it and I create the document. Right, we can see in here that I happen to be in the layout view. And in the layout studio, I've got one page, no master pages. Right, so I start working on this, and let's say I'm designing something. And so I'll throw my signature on it, right, and I start working. Is this a page? Well, of course it's a page. It says it's a page. It says page 1. So yes, at this stage, it's a page. But don't get married to that idea. Because if I decide that this would make a great poster and I now want to switch to vector mode and start working with it, I can do that. And this stays identical. There's nothing different about this document at this stage. But if I then decide I'd like to output this as A4, which it already is, no problem, and A5, by far the easiest way to do that is to create an artboard. So we have an artboard tool that is a throwback to Affinity Designer. So if I activate the artboard tool, you can see that it's going to insert an artboard around my content in here. So I say insert an artboard. Now the reason for using an artboard is well beyond what we're looking at today, but just let it be known that if you do have an artboard, you are able to export using the Slices Studio to different sizes, all with one click. I absolutely love artboards and I use them in many files. Right, but at this point, and you could have decided from the beginning that you'll make this and it'll be an artboard. And then you decide, yeah, it looks great as a poster. I'll use it as the cover for the program for the event. So you switch to layout view. Whoa, what happened to the pages panel? It's no longer a page. It's now an artboard. You can add multiples of these, but notice that this pages panel no longer has master pages in it, and it no longer has pages in it. It has artboards in it. And that's deliberate. So you do at the beginning of the life cycle of your file, you could do with working out whether you want multiple pages in a kind of flow the content through those pages way, or whether you want different artboards. The choice is yours, but it's tricky to switch between them. I can no longer now add what is truly a page. I can add this, but it adds an artboard. And it adds it next to it. It's not flowing like it would in a DTP file. So it's just something to be aware of. The other way with this, I created the artboard after the event. So let's lose that and start again. The other option that I've got in here is maybe I did create it. So let's create a document. We're back to having master pages at the top and pages at the bottom. I could create multiple pages if I wanted to. But let's just say that I go in and I make a master page. So it's one master page. I've not got facing pages, so it's just a single one. Now I have a master page, but that's the only change I made. There's no content, nothing. I just added a master page, which I could have done in the File New dialog, and that we would have got exactly what we're looking at now. And at this point, I decide, I need to work in the Vector Studio, and I need to add some content to it. But notice I'm not adding anything at the moment. This is nothing to do with content. And I think, it's going to be a poster. I'll add an artboard to it. So I come to add an artboard and everything's dimmed out. The Insert Artboard button is dimmed out and all of this is dimmed out. And it doesn't at this point tell you why. So you're thinking to yourself, well, hang on, it's activated the tool, but it won't let me insert one. But the tool's active, so I'll draw one. I'll draw next to it. And that's when you get this message that says artboards can't be added to a document with either multiple pages or master pages. So that's why it's a potential gotcha. Depends what you're doing. And I know a lot of people start out and they just start working and riffing really. Will this work? Will it not? And they get to a point where it's like, this is amazing. This is going to be my document. And you could at that stage have a problem because you need an artboard or you need multiple pages, depending on how you've actually done it. So that's just something to be aware of. If I go back to the layout view, I can carry on working in here. I just can't mix pages, master pages, and artboards in the same file. This was a whole lot clearer when Affinity Designer was a totally separate product from Affinity Publisher. But they've chosen to consolidate the apps, and now we just have to deal with little issues like this that could be very confusing, especially if you're new to this and you think, well, I can add an artboard to a new file. Why can't I add an artboard to that file? And that would be the reason why. Let me know in the chat if anybody has come up against that already. Okay, so that is just something to be aware of at this point. Right, the next place that I'm going to take you to look at is the document properties. And in document properties, you have the ability to edit your master pages. So let's go and get another file in here. Now, and I've just pressed enter, so I don't have any master pages in here at all. I will add a master page. Now, just so we know what's going on in this add master, you can in here set properties for this. So you could set margins on it, drawing scales, you can give it a name. For what I'm doing with this at this stage, it doesn't really matter. If I don't name it, it calls it Master A. Your document properties are in your document setup at the top. For that to be active, remember, you need not to have one of the other tools, because that is the context-sensitive toolbar. You also need not to have anything selected, and that will enable you to go into this dialog box. Now, you can see in here that any changes I make to this at this stage are applying to the whole document. So here is Master A, here is page 1, and any changes that I add to it will be applied to both of them at this stage. So I could go in here, for example, and we've got all the option to scroll. If I forgot to add margins, I could add it at this point. So if I just add that to it, and I'll add a 3mm bleed as well, so we're making some changes, you can see that it applies to Master A, which is where I am up here, and it should also apply to page 1. Right, is this master applied to this page? Well, I didn't do it, and I added it after. So to apply it, I would need to apply it. And at that point, if I then put some content on here, so we'll just put the word master on there, make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. That should ripple through to this page as well because the master is applied to it. Now, if you just want to make changes to the master page, so we'll get rid of that, and you want to make some changes in here, then in your document setup, instead of choosing the whole document, you would go to Selected Masters. And in here, it would have a list of all the master pages you have, and you can make changes in here. So let's say I break the link there and I make the bottom one 15, so I've got more space to put page numbers. And then OK. We can see it's made a difference here because I'm on the master page. Let's go and have a look at page 1. That has rippled through because the master is applied to page 1. So the document setup, if you make a change retrospectively, then you can make changes in here, and there's a whole range of changes that you can make. The other time that we've seen this dialog box is when we had lots of pages and we were working through certain pages and making them. We added 5 pages and then turned them into a spread, and we worked in this dialog box to do it. So we have seen it before in previous sessions, but today what we're concentrating on is either applying changes to the whole document or applying changes to selected master pages. So, for example, if you had created 10 master pages and they all had a margin of 10 and you thought, oh no, now I need to change 10 master pages, you actually don't. You can use this dialog box, and you can even be granular by choosing in here which ones you change. If you want to see that, let's go and add another master page. So there's Master B and we'll have Master C. Then go into the document setup, choose the selected masters, and in here you can choose what you want. So that's what you can do in there. Right, okay, go on to the next bit. So the next bit that we would look at is the Pages panel, because this is where all of the work with the masters happens and all of the work with your pages happens as well. So we'll go and have a look at that. So we've seen it in here. The master pages appear at the top. As I say, you can go in there and you can sort them out. Once you've done this and you've created the perfect configuration of master pages, I very nearly said template then. A template does contain master pages. And ultimately, the best thing you can do for productivity is to make a template. I will show you a completed one later. But when you've set these master pages up, you don't really need to see them because you can work with them by adding pages and applying them. So if I added in here 3 pages, and on page 2 I want to apply Master B, I can drag and drop it. We've seen that. I want to apply Master C to this one. I've got to start scrolling in here before I can see it. So actually you don't even need to see it at all. You can fold it up. And on this page that I want Master C applied to, I can go into it and I can say Apply Master, and I can choose from a drop down which master I apply to it, and then apply it. So really, once you've created your master pages, you can actually leave them alone. Just hide them, and that way you would only need to go into them when you want to make changes to them. So it just makes working with them a little less overwhelming, particularly if you're new to it. And that's what you can do in there. You can also in here do lots of other things in terms of managing the master pages. Now, as well as folding up the master pages with the disclosure triangle, you can also fold up your pages and just concentrate on your master pages. Now, what else can you do with the master pages? Well, all of the things in here, I think naming them is useful. So even if it's blank, it's worth naming it as blank. Oh, you've got to have a capital B. Right. And then the next one could be your page numbers. So in there, you could name that page numbers. Just make it very clear what is what with these, what is applied and why. So this one could have the branding on it. So we'll call it branding. Now that's all very well. They're named correctly. You know exactly what they are. But when you come back to look at your pages, you've no idea which is applied to which one. You can hover and it will say blank. You can hover here, it will say page numbers. You can hover there and it will say branding. And this one was the blank one because that was the old master A. So by hovering, you can tell which master is applied. Right, back into the master pages. If you wanted these in a different order, you can reorder them. So as I'm dragging that up here, you get lots of different icons next to your mouse pointer, which didn't used to be there. I think they added those about just over a year ago. But you can drag and drop these and it should move them. So page numbers is now number 2. We drag branding up there, that's number 2. We can drag blank down to here and that will put blank at the end. So you can rename them. Rename them, reorder them. What else can you do with them? One of the most useful things you can do in here, you can duplicate them if you want a starting point for another one. You can also in here, and this is one of the most useful things, you can choose a colour. So I've made branding red. I'll make the page numbers yellow. And the blank one will make that green, which means there's nothing on it. You've got a nice little traffic light system going on. And that makes it very clear in the master pages view that you've got a colour applied, which would be useless if it didn't come through somewhere else. It comes through somewhere else. It comes through to the pages. This is genius to let you know that if you know that the green is blank, you don't have to hover and have a look. You can glance at that and it makes it glanceable as to which master page is applied. So for instance, if you're hoping that this page looks like this page and it doesn't, it's glaringly obvious what the problem is. You might be looking at it and thinking, but the margins are the same, so where's the page number gone? Where's the branding gone? But if you look at the colour, you can instantly see they're not the same master. So if I were to go to this one and apply a master, and was it the branding one? Yes. In this drop down now, you can see that page 4 has the green one applied. You can see in this drop down which is the green one. You know you need the red one. Can't remember what it's called. Not a problem. It's in the list. Choose what you want and OK. And now you can see they're both red. So they should contain exactly the content that you require. What else can we do in here? Let's go and have a look at the master pages. I didn't duplicate one, but I will show you that it is that simple to go into here and just choose duplicate. It will make another master. The naming gets a bit dicey because if you duplicate a duplicate, you get 2, 2, which is like, really? Why didn't you make it 3? And I don't really want it to say 2. But let's say blank with a logo, right? Just rename them, but you can duplicate them. So take one of these master pages as far as you possibly can before you then duplicate it. You'll save yourself a lot of work. Right, but you're probably concerned about putting content on these master pages. So I will with this one. I'll save that one. We'll put that in there. We'll just call it untitled. Right, let's get rid of it. Okay, so we're going to look at static content. When I say static content, I'm making a distinction between static content and dynamic content, which automatically updates. Some content, it sounds like, well, there's a master page. Of course I want dynamic content. Yes and no. There are certain things that you want on every page and it's static. So let's have a look at creating that static content first. So I will go into here and I'm starting completely from scratch with just one page. So the static content that I'm talking about would include things like decoration, it would include logos, it would include text boxes. So on here you can see I don't actually have anything in the way of margins to work to or anything. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to give this some margins. So I've started from scratch because that might be exactly where you are. And I'm going to make that bottom one 15 because I'm going to put something on there later. Right, so I've now got margins on there. Let's check. I don't have a master page though at this point. I've got my margins on here. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is to make a master page. Notice the margins have rippled through from the single page that I have. I don't even have to reset that. And this one I could call, let's just say logo, because that's what I'm going to put on it. Right, so this is going to be my logo page. What is applied to this one at the moment? Well, I'm hovering and it's not saying anything at all. So let's make sure that that is applying to that. So when I hover now, it should say logo. There we go. Eventually, it caught up with me. Right, so what you've got to remember is when you're putting your static content on it, make sure that you're on the master page. You get a very light border around it, indicating that you are on there. And I must admit, I've always thought, oh, that doesn't matter. You know, it's obvious where I am. And PowerPoint broke a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't put this border around it, and I was lost. I could not work without it. So don't underestimate the power of this border to indicate where you are. If you're on this page, your actual content page, it's on there. If you're on your master page, it's on there. Do we've been a little bit brighter, but never mind. Right, and now you're working on the master page, you're going to put your static content. So what sort of static content do we want? Well, I'm going to say in the assets, let's add my signature to the top for branding purposes. So let's just put that up there. Then I'm going to add some page numbers later. But at this stage, I'd like to add some decoration. So I'm going to use the pen tool, come down to the bottom and click once, move across to this side and click once. And I now have a line there. We can't see it too well, but the line is there. I can increase the stroke on that so we can see it much better. So we'll have it at 1. That's a compromise, isn't it? So that decoration is going to be on every page. The brand is going to be on every page. Now, the other thing that I can put on here that makes life a little bit easier is I can actually put the text box on here. So if I want text in this area here, so we'll say about there, I will take it down to the line, but that's going to give me a problem, isn't it? So I'll leave it up there slightly. Right. So that is where I want text. Now, obviously, the branding goes on the master page, the line goes on the master page, the content, the actual text, does not go on the master page, but its holding text frame can do. When we go to our page, we can see that we now have the brand at the top, we've got the line at the bottom, and we've got a placeholder for the text in the middle. We can check all of that over here in the Layers panel. It says logo, which is the name of the master page. When we open that, we've got the 3 elements. We have the signature, we have the line at the bottom, and we have some frame text. Your background page, your master page, is indicated, the content, well, it's indicated here, where it's got the name of it, with a green stripe and an icon that means this is a master page. When you use the disclosure triangle, the content of the master page is indicated with a solid green line. Each one also has an icon indicating what it is. That's art text, that is a line, and that is text, frame text. So that is what you have there. Now, if you start adding things to this page, so let's say you wanted a different asset on it. Have we got anything? Let's put the affinity icon on it. Let's put that up there and do that with it. Right, so we'll have that there. That is not part of the master page. You can see that here. If you wanted it to be part of the master page and you've just put it on here because you happen to be on this page, then obviously you would need to cut it from where it is and put it on the master page. By cutting it rather than re-adding it, it remembers the size. And now that will come through. But what we're looking at is content that is only on this page. So now we're on the page, you can see that that icon has got its own green stripe and it's inside the master page layer in your layers panel. Right, so content that is on only this page is outside of that green section. Other content is within it. Now, let's say up here we want to add some text, which I did have this text. Oh, crying out loud. Right, I'm on the page and I want to add some text to it. So what I'll do in here, I have got Scotland, Scotland, Scotland. Let me do that. Was it that one? I think it was, but I'm not at all sure if it was looked like that, but it'll do. Right, so what I've put here is some text in that frame. Now you can see it's marked down, not formatted great. That would be a job for me to tidy up. But I said, didn't I? I definitely said that if you put content on a page, it will appear outside of this master area. This single line in your layers panel, one single layer, that is the master content, but the text isn't. And that's because we put the frame on the master page. And now this has a dotted line on it. That is indicating to you that it's customized for this page. Now, the other way of doing that would have been if I had added a page and it didn't have a master. So I clear the masters off it and I put a text frame on it. And then I paste the text in it. So let's get rid of the top bit. You can see that that just sits there neatly on the top. There's no master page. If I were to apply the master page to that, so we will apply the master. We will choose the logo one. Where's the text? Well, it doesn't automatically go into the text frame. It keeps the content of the page that we have, and I would then need to move that down. I can put it in exactly the same place if I want, but it's independent of the master. Now, in terms of expanding the rest of the content that I pasted in, because you can see there's too much content here, and there's too much content on this page with the master, what I would need to do is hold the Shift key down and click that button. And it would add all of the remaining pages that I need. Notice with this one that had the master page, that text goes into the frame. Let's go back and find page 2, which was this one. Oh dear, it's put it over the top of it. Oh dear. This is what happens to you, isn't it? And you're like, what went wrong there? What it's done is it's threaded it through it. So it's actually behind it. Now ours is at the top, which we didn't particularly want. So things to think about in terms of that. What I could do with this is get rid of the one on the page, and you can see then it's threaded through it. If I undo that and I bring that back, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my page, go to the end. I will add another page for me to put my content on. There is my content. This is separate from the background. And at this point, if I go in there and I shift click it, I get all of the pages that I need, or I should do, here they are. And this is separate from the master page. It's threaded from page to page, but it's separate from the master page. Which should you use and why? Totally up to you. Totally up to you. Just be aware that it is fractionally different. So we added in that circumstance static content, which was the branding, we added the icon, we added the line below. Right, what I'm going to do at this stage with this is, let's get rid of all of the pages, because I am going to carry on using this. Right, so I will in here delete all of those pages, which leaves me with one page. Right, we will come back to that in a second. Right, so we now need dynamic content. Now, dynamic content is content that you want on every page, or every page that that master is applied to, but you want it to dynamically update. It isn't something that you want to go into and change every instance of. The obvious demonstration for this is page numbers, and that is where we'll start. Handily, it's not where we'll finish though. There's lots more things that we can add as dynamic content. So we will start off with page numbers in this file. So again, the first thing to think about is, where are you when you are adding this? and you need to make sure that you have double-clicked on your master page. And we will be working down here. So you're going to need a text box to hold your page number. Right, let's put that in. It can be whatever size you want it to be. I would not put it straight up to the line. I'd either leave a gap or make it a little bit taller. And then I would move the text down. So if I want this to say page number whatever, you can see how close that is to it. And if I do a preview, that doesn't look great. So what I do with that is make sure with my text that I align it to the middle of the text frame. Now, that will work for me in this file. It might not work for you. It might start jumping around. And what would be happening at that stage is that you would have a baseline grid. By default, the documents do not have a baseline grid, but you've probably seen a short video, a genuine short on YouTube, 30 seconds or less, telling you need a baseline grid, so you've turned it on. And now weirdness is happening and you don't know why. So if I turn the baseline grid on, notice that moved fractionally. Not catastrophically so, but it moved. Right, if I make this bigger, you can see what's happening. As the baseline grid changes, that moves. And I don't want it to. So I'll leave that baseline grid on for the moment so we can see it. But how do I get this text where I want it to be? Because it's jumping around and I don't want it to jump around. Right, you have options with that. So I've selected that frame and I am bringing on a panel that I have on my third monitor, which is the text frame panel. And you have two things that you can do with this that I would save and only use sparingly. It's a bit like adding salt and pepper to food, sparingly. But you can choose to ignore the baseline grid. And that will enable you to place that wherever you like. The other thing that you can choose to ignore is the text wrap. That works well for things like captions. But we looked at captions last week, not this week. Right, this won't have any impact at all if you don't have a baseline grid. But if you find that your text is jumping all over the place, you probably do. And that is what you do to avoid the baseline grid. I'm not going to use a baseline grid in here. Let's not overcomplicate things. Right, so I've got the word page. That's static. What I now need is the number. For that, I go to Text, Insert, Fields. And I have a range of commonly used fields here in the menu. I also have access to more fields, and those fields would be in the Fields panel. But the common ones you need here are available, so page number. Now, some people have said when they put this in, oh, it's all gone wrong, it's a hash sign. That's because you're on the master page, and right back at the beginning, I said your master pages are not output. So it has to have a kind of holding thing. At this stage, if you're concerned, go and check on your page and you can see it says page 1. If you were to add extra pages, so let's add 3 extra pages. That one says page 2, that one says page 3, and that one says page 4. So it has worked. Now, I was also told, to me, I'm doing a demonstration, and that's principle, and that is perfect. You've now got page numbers on every page, and I get told, I can't possibly follow this demonstration because that's not formatted correctly and you had styles I didn't have. Really? Get a life, just saying. But it does make sense with page numbers that they are formatted slightly differently than the rest of your text. They could be italic, they could be in a different font, they could be smaller. I would say definitely smaller. So we will cover that despite the fact we've got lots to do. We'll do it very, very quickly. Text styles are what you need. I made this file from new. I have not customized these in any way, shape or form. I am not a magician here. So what I will do is I have a body style. What I would like to have is a duplicate of that. I could even say create a style based on body. That will do nicely. And this is going to be my footer style. Now, I'll caveat this before I do it. This is not how I do it. I have 3 footer styles in a footer style group aligned to the left, the centre and the right. Time is of the essence today. I'm going to have 1. It'll do. Right, so what that looks like is my footer style is based on body and my body style is based on base. Which means if I wanted that to be Times New Roman to match the rest of my document, I would go to the base style, which is the highest style, and that one is where the font is set. So in here, let's change that to Times New Roman. Now, why didn't that ripple through? Because it's not applied yet. Let's apply the footer style, and it has updated. But it's still too big. I don't change the size at base level because that would change body and footer and base. I go into the footer and I edit just this at this level. And where it says no change, I change that to something smaller, probably 7 or 8 points. And that is how you add a page number. That looks perfect. We've got to zoom in to see it, but there it is. If you wanted that page number then right aligned, you would go into your master page. Do not try fiddling at the page level. Go into the master page, and you could do one of two things, depending on your footer style. The first thing you could do is just set the alignment to be right aligned. But then your footer style is the footer style and it has a plus next to it. If you want everything right aligned all the time there, then you would right click on your style and you would say update the footer style. And now that footer style is defined as having it aligned to the right and there's no plus shown. One thing that drives me mad, I don't think that looks neat and tidy. I think it would be better if this page number was pulled back slightly, so this kind of just hung over it a little bit. You have two options for that. One is to go back to your text frame in here, and one of the things you can do is put an inset like that, and that will move the text back from the right hand edge by 2 millimeters or 1 millimeter. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, oh, don't start. Trying to move these. Oh, no. I've got to click this at just the right spot or it breaks them up. Right, the other way to do it would be in your footer style, where you go into here and you have your spacing options, and you could say, I want a right indent. Let's do this. No, hang on, it's not that. Is it the last line indent? There we go. So I want a right indent or a last line indent of 2 millimeters, and it does exactly the same thing. Which is best depends on what you want to do with it. It's up to you. Doesn't matter. Because the final output is either going to be printed or a PDF, and how you did it doesn't matter. So just do the way that you're happy with. Right, we have a page number. Right, that's one page number. Right, now this is a good point to show you. What if I wanted some pages to say page X of Y? Right, well, I've pretty much got the master page content as I want it. So a good idea would be to say, let's duplicate that. So we duplicate it. We now have logo 2. We will call this page X of Y. And we're going to change things in here. So we have page X of Y and we have it centered. Well, we've got page X, so we're halfway there. We just need the and Y. And what I am going to do with that is center it. I'm not going to fiddle with styles. We've done styles before, but you would probably create styles. And in there, say page X of, and now I need the page count. So I'm going back to text and down to insert, over to fields, and let's look what we've got. The next frame page number, so that would be where you've got continued on. Oh, total pages. That looks hopeful. And it knows there are 4 pages, so it actually puts that in. And now we have our page X of Y. Bearing in mind that that is the master page. It's not applied to any of these pages. So we will go down to page 3. We will see that at the moment it's got a different master page applied.